Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The regular meeting of the Grosse Township Planning Commission will come to order. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion from Kovalek, support.
Support.
Support from Brian. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda stands. Next item, we have minutes from the May 19th, 2025 meeting.
Move approval.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Support from Bill. Call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment is next. An opportunity for citizens to speak with the commission about an item not on the agenda tonight. Anybody want to talk about something not on the agenda?
Would this be an opportunity to talk about the master plan?
That's on our agenda, so it'll be coming up here shortly. Yes, sir. Okay, seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to the first item, which is the Township Master Plan. A little background first. This is a master plan public hearing and recommendation to the Township Board. The Grosse Master Plan is a Planning Commission document that serves two purposes. First, it documents what Grosse is today and a vision for how Grosse can evolve in the future. It is the underlying basis for our zoning ordinances. All zoning ordinances that we have must tie back to a principle that's outlined in a master plan in order to be legal. You can think about the master plan as a vision, okay? There is nothing that is either approved or disapproved in the master plan. It's like a roadmap, okay? And along the way, when things come along, we judge applications against the zoning ordinance that are consistent with the master plan in order to decide on how we make decisions. So the master plan has a number of multiple elements. The two that are of particular, all of them are of interest to the Planning Commission because we have responsibility for the community. However, there are two which are really focused for us, and that's land use and housing. Little history lesson. This project started back in the fourth quarter of 2023. We interviewed two planning groups who submitted bids. The Smith Group came out the winner of that, and they were hired as the consultant to help our community with preparing the document. When they got started, after they laid out a plan, it was a very public process. There were workshops on various topics that they led. There were opportunities for citizens to contribute via a web page. There were walkarounds with members of the community in order to pull in the thoughts of the people that of our community, of our citizens, and so it was very intense. The project progressed. I also might add that in addition to the individual commissions and committees that worked on this, of which basically all of them did, there was I lost my train of thought, sorry. In any case, there was a steering committee, and the steering committee consisted of 10 citizens from various organizations, committees, and even outside organizations that function on Grosse, and this committee met regularly with the Smith Group and with Ross, again with the idea of helping to develop and massage and take the input that was coming in and turn it into something which was meaningful for Grosse. So all of that was going on. Finally, in about November of 2024, a whole year later, we received a planning commission draft here at one of our meetings, and we approved that draft in order that Ross could then place that on the website and start a legal requirement, a 60-day period of time, where people can comment, ask questions, and that was actually used fairly well. Now, we didn't stop it at 60 days. Ross kept it active and going, basically all the way through, probably when?
Today.
Today, okay. So, again, the idea of making sure that there's as much opportunity for input as people want to have, and make it easy for that to happen. Now, in January of 2025, the Planning Commission started the review of action items. The document was broken basically into two sections, well, three sections. The first was a text section, a write-up, so to speak, which is approximately 150 pages long. Then there were an action item section, which constituted probably, I don't know, I'm guessing now, 150 to 200 action items, give or take. Okay? And then following that were appendices for all of the supporting documents and master plans that other parts of the community have put together, like the airport or the recreation department or Macomb Street, so that everything was pulled together into one document, basically. When we started that clock, we came back. Started that 60-day clock. We came back in March of that year, and we actually had a meeting in between where we started to try to work on the action items as a committee up here. And it was actually an interesting exercise because we spent an hour and a half and only resolved 3 of the action items. So it was pretty clear that trying to navigate all of these action items in a format where we had 9 people participating was very cumbersome and flat out wasn't going to work. So what the Planning Commission then did was they charged the officers, that's Jay Frucci and Eric Ranko, who's not here tonight, and me, to go off and to make recommendations. But to do that, we asked each individual commissioner to submit their desires based on the action items that the Smith Group had proposed. So every commissioner had an opportunity to go through each one of the action items and say, I like this, or it's okay, or it's not okay, I want it changed to this, or delete it, or add something else. So the commissioners gave that information back to Jay and Eric and me, and we processed it. We collected it all together, and then through extended discussions that we had, we took people's opinions and we came up with an action item for each, which we were able to recommend back to the commission. We then forwarded that for each back to all the commissioners so they could see what it was that we were recommending. We brought this then back to the next Planning Commission meeting where we went through it by group, and knowing that each of the commissioners had an opportunity to see their input, to see how it was responded to by the officers, to have input, do we accept it, do we not accept it, okay? And along with that was the recognition by the commission that when you do a master plan, something as complicated as this, okay, with so many different tentacles, okay, you're gonna look at it and you say, well, there's 95% of the things I really love. 4% I kind of don't like, and 1% I hate, okay? What do you do? What you do is you look for the things where you can find you can find consensus. And recognizing that nobody and that looked at this, that was voting on this, got everything that they wanted. I didn't, Jay didn't, Brian didn't, none of us did. Okay? But that's the way the system works, because we all looked at it from the standpoint that there's 95% of stuff in here that's really great for the community, and we got to get on with it. And so that was our attitude, and that was how we processed it. And the action items were reviewed and approved. Now, given that we worked on the action items, we then came back to the text. This 130-page document that has all the data and supporting information for the action items has to align with the way the Planning Commission finally decided on what those action items should be. So again, we took the same approach. We forwarded on the individual sections back to all the planning commissioners so they could look. We had made proposed changes, which they evaluated and critiqued and marked up. Again, same sort of thing. Where they provided input on each one of the potential changes that were out there, and then the officers got back together again, and this time we evaluated the input of each of the commissioners that gave us a thought on something against what the Smith Group had said, and finally was able to make recommendations about how the text should be aligned. So we did that. We brought that back to the Planning Commission, and this was at the last meeting. And we went through that, and the text was unanimously approved. So again, people looked at this document recognizing that nobody gets everything that they want, but they were happy with what was there because the underlying principles were there for the good of the community. So that took us to May of this year. Now we move to where we are tonight. Well, what happened in between? Well, this document, both the action items and the text, are all marked up, okay? Because they were working documents. So we gave that document back to Ross, who then went back to the Smith Group. The Smith Group then took it all and reprocessed it, reformatted it, put it in shape so that it is a finished document. Okay, and that is what has gone on in the last few weeks. Now, I have to say, we would have been able to meet on this sooner, but we've had a very difficult time getting a quorum. So it isn't that we were delaying on anything, but meetings were called and there just weren't enough people. And so, and it is important because in approving a master plan, I was just educated about this tonight by Brian, that the approval is not the approval of the quorum. It's the approval of the overall membership of the Planning Commission, okay, which means there are 9 members, which means that 5 votes are required to pass this on as a recommendation of the Township Board, not 3 or 4 of 6. So that's something I learned tonight and wanted to pass on. So when we process this, that's the way it will be. Also to that end, there is a really long and complex motion for the master plan that was put together. Who actually put that together, Ross?
It's a template provided by Smith Group. It's sort of it's a pretty replicated template. I just added specific things that were mentioned in our master plan to this resolution.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So this template we will be voting on tonight, and it is the document which would be the basis for passing this from the Planning Commission to the Township Board. The Township Board has the final say on the master plan. Okay, and Bill Heil, our representative there at the far end of the table, will be taking this recommendation, assuming that we approve it, and pass it on to the Township Board for their eventual consideration. I've talked a lot. Are there questions, comments, concerns?
John, I would, not to change anything you said, I think it was all absolutely appropriate. I think one of the things that came to mind as we were talking was that if anybody watches this group work, you'll see that we put a lot of effort into reaching consensus on issues every time we can. And we put a lot of time and effort into those discussions, and generally, a large number of our votes are unanimous because we put in the time to make sure that everybody's on the same page. That's not always the case, and it wasn't the case on everything that we did with this process. But I think it was a process that I feel very proud to have been a part of. On the way we laid everything out, we discussed everything. Everybody had a chance to put in their input, and it was considered. And I think everybody had valuable input. And having different viewpoints is healthy for an organization like this, for a group like this. So I think it was a very very complicated process that was made equitable and fair for everybody. And so I just wanted to say that to the extent there was disagreement, I think it was all good faith. I think there was certainly respect on my part for people's views, even if I disagreed with the recommendations or the comments. But they were all made in good faith, and I appreciate them all.
Thank you, Jay. Brian, would you like to comment on this process at all, on your thoughts as a
Thank you
planner
for
yourself?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair. As one of the people that was, obviously like in the minority on some of the votes, I can attest that again, nothing was, unanimous in the regard, but like everyone was treated with respect along the way, and decisions, everyone got their voice heard, and at the end of the day, this is about democracy and like the vote in that regards. So respect the will of the Planning Commission over here. I'll just say again, in general, I feel like for Grosse, we should master plan should be looking bigger, bolder, like trying to see how we can really re-envision the community in some ways, be more accepting, be able to be better positioned for a variety of different economic conditions that can come before us. But again, I got some of those. I didn't get all of them. And I'm appreciative for the process over here, and look forward to trying to implement some of those policies.
Thank you, Brian. Angela, would you care to offer some comments about what we've been through?
Sure. I think echoing a bit of what Brian just said, I was certainly in the minority on many of the topics that were discussed at each of the meetings. I, having had experience with the DDA on Macomb Street years ago, and some economic development experience, that's really where my head was in thinking a little bit bigger, a little more visionary, and really, I think, taking our experiences and what we've learned and built to date and enabling opportunities for the future boards to have more of a conversation leading to some interesting decisions, maybe allowing Grosse to be a bit more nimble than what we've been in the past. I do feel that I was heard. I feel that my concerns were considered. I might disagree. I feel like the process was a little more managed than I would have liked it to be. I wanted it to be a little more dynamic, just with my background and my experience in corporate strategy and other strategic management processes. I feel like we did kind of need a little structure to get somewhere, and so we provided that, and it worked in the end. It wasn't my favorite way to approach it. But I am level-headed enough to understand when I'm in the minority and when, my points might not be the will of the majority or of the group. I did speak and act and think in a way that I thought best represented the way I see Grosse and the potential that I see in it. But I am level-headed enough to understand when I should stop debating and stop speaking and commenting and just kind of prioritize on what I felt was most important for us going forward. And I think that came out in this document. I just wanted to make sure that I added those comments. I think likely tonight I will vote in favor of moving it forward because I think we have put in about as much resources and energy and time as we probably should. And I think it's time for the community to take a look at it and the township board to make a decision.
Thank you, Angela. Mr. Koblak.
John,
Thoughts?
I think with everything that's been said to date is appropriate. I guess one of the questions, for the people that are in the audience and the people that potentially are watching this, just make it clear to them as to what's transpiring today. We have a public hearing that allows residents to get up and speak about what they've seen online with this master plan. And then once that public hearing's closed, we will then bring it back to the commission to make a recommendation to the board. Is that what's proposed for tonight?
The motion that Ross
Right.
prepared.
So we're going to have a public hearing first,
Yes,
and then once that is done and it's closed, then it's going to come back to the commission, make a recommendation.
yes. There'll be
Okay.
a motion to approve the resolution, basically, is what it will be.
All right. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Heil, have you any comments you would like to share about
Yes,
the
yes.
process you've seen?
Yes, I have comments. I'm the new person in this group, newly elected last November. The vast bulk of the work that has gone on was prior to my arrival here. But from day one, the willingness to respect one another, the willingness to care and be concerned and represent themselves without rancor, has been displayed again and again. It's an example I wish our country could see. We have here a guide to the future. It's not an answer to everything. All of us have the perfect opportunity, if we are zealous for a project, to introduce it, and subject to the rules of the game, so to speak, have it heard and evaluated with respect. That's the most we hope for. I'm hopeful that we can use this as a guide and an inspiration in the community to undertake certain amounts of further study of what projects are necessary for our long-term goals. But I think we can be thankful for the people and the work they have done, and I want to say that clearly. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Hey, John, if I could just add one other thing.
Yes,
I
please.
appreciate you taking the time and effort to show the history and the path of this project. Because even though, I'm not on Facebook, thankfully I'm not on Facebook, few people sent me some Facebook posts today. And one of the things that's really bothered me is the fact that one of the Facebook posts indicated that just a few members of the Grosse Planning Commission spent the last 6 months quietly rewriting the township's master plan. I think it's good that you actually gave the history of it, right? Because God knows Ross has gone through how many redrafts, how many times we've been here. You and Jay and Eric take an extra time out of your day or night to go through this after work. The fact that someone that would put that out there that says that this rewritten version is driven by just a few voices on the Planning Commission and doesn't reflect our community's values or needs, that's just disingenuous, right? So the fact that you gave that preamble as to start to finish, I appreciate you doing that, and I hope people listen to it.
Thank you. All right, I'll bring it back at this point, and we will formally open the public hearing. So, is there anyone who would like to address the commission about the master plan? And if so, please come up, give us your name and your address so we can record your comments correctly for the record. Who would like to speak? Hello, Father.
Good evening, how are you, John?
I'm excellent, sir. And I hope you're well, too.
I'm very well, and I'm glad to be here, and I thank all of you for this opportunity. Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, will I speak on behalf of Sacred Heart Catholic Church here in the islands.
Excuse me 1 second, there's something,
Thank you.
okay, yeah, you were not on the air, I'm sorry.
No problem. So my name is Father Mark Goronsky, and I'm the pastor of Sacred Heart Church here on Grosse. So on behalf of the Catholic Church, just a little bit of an introduction. Tomorrow there's going to be a press conference in Rome, and they're going to add a couple pages to the book that we use during Mass, the Roman Missal. And it's going to be a set of prayers for a particular Mass, and that Mass is going to be for the care of creation. This is something that Pope Francis most probably started and wasn't able to finish, and now it's reaching its conclusion. So those beautiful prayers will come out tomorrow because, and that's, I think, very significant for our island. We live in a very special place, a place that is just surrounded by the beauty of creation, and I'm inspired every day. I know a lot of people are. And one of those sources of inspiration on this island are the green space that so many people have worked very hard to create and maintain. And I know we at Sacred Heart appreciate that as well. But I also know that we at Sacred Heart have been speaking to folks at this table about another space which has a baseball diamond on it and some other spaces on parish property as well. They're not really green space, they're mowed space. They're spaces that we mow the lawn on, and they're not really used anymore. And so on behalf of the parish, and I know that the commission received over 90 letters regarding this space. I don't know if you saw those letters or not.
I didn't, but.
You didn't, but
I got them.
Ross has got them. If you
Yes.
want to see them, Ross has them. They're very similarly worded. And I just want to say that to drill down to a very specific space here, what we're hoping to do as a parish, to meet the needs of our senior citizens, because we want to balance, as a church, of course, and as parishioners, as islanders, we want to balance the responsibility we have with creation, for creation, to a responsibility to care for the people as well who live on the island, especially our seniors, most of whom have lived on this island for many, many years and whom we owe very, very much to. And so we would like to be able to plan eventually to provide senior housing options, which might include assisted living and memory care. So we would like to ensure that in this plan, that zoning would be permitted for a single-story building on the excess property I'm talking about at 21599 Park Lane, the property of Sacred Heart Church on Grosse. A 4.8-acre former baseball fields and a 7.5-acre wooded lot to the southern portion of the property as well for housing. The master plan mentions many times, very, very wisely and astutely, that the population of Grosse is aging. So the market, according to our real estate professional, will support a 50-unit single-story with gable roof, a senior assisted and memory care facility of about 50,000 feet. And so we're asking the use of planned unit development for such a project, inasmuch as it would give Grosse the flexibility on building size, elevations, landscaping, and parking, just to name a few. The use of a planned unit development could be, and we suggest should be, to meet the needs of many of our parishioners and many other people on Grosse, added to the master plan, and to support changes of the future land use map. As some of you indicated, there should be a nimbleness to this plan. There should be an ability to adapt to the needs of our residents. This is a crucial time for many of our seniors on the island that have been part of our community for the past 30 years or more. Seniors are in homes on this island that have outgrown them in a very real way. And so adding senior housing to our community would allow these seniors to move to housing that's more suited to their needs. As Leo Gonzalez, who is our real estate professional, wrote, he said, the biggest travesty would be for a senior who's invested in the community and school through taxes for all these years to be forced to move off the island because we don't provide a space for them. And so we ask you to consider this in the last stages of completing this master plan. Thank you.
As feedback for you on this, as you noted, in the land use section and in the housing section of the master plan, there is a lot of data that recognizes the population growth of the aging and of the need for housing of various types to accommodate that section of aging population.
Definitely.
And so that is ingrained in those two sections. And I'm sure that when a plan is submitted to us, okay, we will evaluate it, with that in mind. But keep in mind, one of the best things to get a positive review from the Planning Commission is the quality of the application. the quality of what is actually proposed, and making sure that it fits the neighborhood, that all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, so that when the planning commission gets this, it fits. And I think you know what I mean by that.
I appreciate that, John. I do.
Okay? And so I would go away assured that the planning commission is very much aware of the issue that you're discussing. And I would throw it back to you and to the architect and that whoever it is that you've hired to present us with a plan that literally we can't say no to. That's your challenge.
That's great advice, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mr. Schweikart.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody, for all your hard work.
And
Thank you.
John,
Any other comments?
yeah, John, just real fast, the last time senior housing happened on Grosse, when I was here, I think you were here at the same time, we didn't really look at the master plan. We looked at zoning and we tried to figure out how to fit it in the parcel that's on Macomb Street. I mean, it was a whole process, right? It wasn't the master plan. I never pulled out the master plan once. Question is, does it fit? Can we have parking? Can we have flow? How many stories it's going to be? How's it going to affect the community? And obviously there's senior housing on site right now. So if and when it comes back in front of us, well, I'm going to review it the same way.
Yeah, the difference is this master plan really, which I don't know if it acknowledged before when you considered senior housing, but this master plan is clear about the need for senior housing.
Well, and through the chair, think about that. Potentially, if the master plan at that time didn't even address senior housing, we still addressed it and saw the need.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, sir. Other comments, please? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Leo Gonzalez, CRS Commercial Real Estate, on behalf of Sacred Heart Church. For the benefit of everybody's time, I will not repeat the words that Father Mark had shared with you. Maybe add two, if I may. So certainly your master plan, because I was part of the process. Many of the parishioners were part of the process when you had some study sessions, some call-in sessions to give input of what they wanted to see in their community. Your study certainly showed that your population of 65 to 80-year-olds increased by 14% in 10 years. So, here we have a 85-something-year-old husband and wife, or maybe one of the other, that are in your community that have a limited amount of options. So, as I say, and Father touched on this a bit, is that if we give an opportunity to have these other housing products on the island, this will allow that a person to move out of their home, continue to have a residence on the island, and then offer for another product on the island to a family that might want to move up, or a family who wants to move onto the island, because as we know, there's a shortage of housing supply, not only on Grosse, but all of the communities that that are desirable, that people want to move to. So this kind of opens up the cycle, and I've been in this business for 40 years, and I tell this to planning commissioners and boards, and in my own community recently did a presentation, and we brought on density in Plymouth Township, specifically for the reason of providing a product. In that case, it was we wanted to provide a product for the younger generation so they won't move somewhere else and never be able to move back to the community because they had settled somewhere else. But all of these housing products are so critical to the community. And the master plan, from what I understand, unless the board is going to go on record here and say that we can use tools like a PUD. Currently, the master plan zoning for the 7.5 acre parcel to the south, what we call the wooded area, and 4.2 acre baseball field of the Sacred Heart Church is still, that zoning hasn't changed. So if that zoning hasn't changed, but the board is going on record to say, hey, we'll look at these as these come through, and we think we have the tools to do that, then I'm open to looking forward to be able to bring forth a quality project that is a assisted living, a memory care, because we have had a very significant developers that have approached us, but we don't have the tools to be able to deliver the zoning, or they recognize they don't have the tools within the zoning ordinance to be able to develop what they want. So that's why we've become involved in this process. But if the board is saying that, hey, we have the tools and we can do this, then we look forward to working with you. But the problem is I don't understand. I understand that your master plan doesn't have a PUD ordinance. And you're going to have some difficulties, and I'll defer to Ross, and he can defer to your other experts here, but you're going to have some difficulties in the zoning if you don't have that PUD. The PUD would give you some flexibility to allow to work on these projects on a case-by-case basis, on, the elevations. Certainly, we would deliver a quality project, a single-story building, something that we feel would fit in the neighborhood. And it could be something less than 50,000 square feet. It could be a 15 to 20,000 square foot building, and it will be very much market driven. So I'm encouraged by your comments. This has been an important piece of property to the church for many, many years, and we'd like to deliver a housing product to other people on the island that see a value of continuing to be able to see their aging years in a assisted, in a memory care facility. It's interesting. The market shifted in the last 10 to 15 years. If you went back 15 years ago, there was a big push for, you've seen seniors going in independent living. As seniors were able to get health care to their homes, they skipped over the independent, so they stayed longer. Well, that's okay for the senior, and I get it, they want to age in place. But it also put a lot of pressure on those homes because that house wasn't coming available now because the senior is staying in there 10 to 12 years longer until the point that they actually had to go into assisted living. So this kind of the way the market's evolved. People are a little healthier, living a little bit longer, have the desire to want to live in their houses. But they all get to a point where they need to go to the next level. And we feel that the proximity of this to the church, the proximity of this to the community, can be well done, and look forward to working with the board.
Thank you. For the Planning Commission and our planner and Ross are set up to help applicants to figure out how best to navigate the zoning ordinances. We have what's called a concept review committee, which consists of the three officers and Brian Borden and Ross. And when you have something that you can lay down on a preliminary basis that you can show us specifically what you're talking about, okay? We can sit in a room and we can talk about the various concerns, the various issues that you have, the concerns we have from zoning, and try to put together something that matches, okay? And this is all done as part of our service to help applicants to be able to put a plan together that has it before it ever comes to the full planning commission, to know that the key issues are ironed out. There'd be nothing worse than you going off and spending all your time and then showing up with a pile of drawings and then come to the planning commission and get rejected, or hey, you forgot this, or you needed to do that. You don't want to do that, okay? What you want to do is work with us. But the initiative is on your end. You've got to prepare the basics for us to be able to look at and evaluate from a zoning standpoint, from balanced with what you want to do, and how we would go about doing this is with the zoning that we have, or with zoning that needs to change. Who knows? I don't know. We have no plan. So my suggestion is go back and work on it. Get your ducks in a row and call up Ross and Brian over here, and we'll set up meetings that can help to facilitate this for you.
Okay. Well, it
is not the process that drives whether this planning commission approves or denies something. Okay, it's the quality of the application itself. And so that's what we focus on.
That's important. I mean, if that's is the strategy that where the board is going to view these projects, I'm confident we can bring forth a project that the community.
That is exactly how we handle every project.
But because we certainly know that the master plan process that has been going through the last year has a clear need for alternative housing. So that is a good backdrop to have. But with your comments, appreciate them. Thank you for the time of being able to present our ideas here. and look forward to working with the board in the future.
Thank you. Any commissioners want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would just add, to the extent any of that could be misinterpreted, that the steering committee or the pre-application committee is a filter that's going to stop things from getting to the planning commission. You know, everybody has the right to say, we don't care about your input, we're going to take it to the planning commission, and as we've seen here, we'll debate it and have a vote and that sort of thing. It's really designed not to stop anything, but really to help to shape things so that you don't lose on a procedural issue that, well, this isn't allowed, or this requirement isn't met, and things like that, and to give guidance on what we think is likely to happen at this level. So it's really ought to be considered as a service rather than another step or of bureaucracy or anything like that. So I just hope nobody took any of that and I certainly didn't. But I know that sometimes people don't have the perspective on things that might sound like, oh, I've got to go through one more step before I get there. So that's not the case.
Thank you for that clarification or expansion. Jay, I appreciate that too. Okay, others who would like to speak? Any hands? Yes, sir. Come on up and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. Appreciate the work you guys have done, and also the summary of all of the work that's gone into creating the master plan and all of the detail. I read through that thing early on, and the number of projects that were proposed, and it's daunting. So I understand that kind of detail, and I appreciate it. My name is Ken Yipe. I've been an island resident for about 50 years. At some point in time, I might actually be considered a resident. But my address is 29169 East River Road, and I'm one of the folks that Father and Leo have talked about that are aging. I'm aging in place right now, but in the foreseeable future, I see that I'm going to need to have some assistance. I hope to have assistance where I am so I can age in place. But beyond that, I would like to make sure that I age in my neighborhood. My friends are here, my life's here, my house is here, my parish is here, my shopping is here, and I love the island, as everybody here has spoken to. My goal is to just ensure that the master plan supports of what Father and Leo were talking about to address where do seniors go when they want to move on from their house and move into something on Grosse. When I read through the master plan, there's all kinds of detail on the types of houses, where the houses could be, what the individual zoning is, but I didn't see anything that really said the master plan supports housing or accommodations for seniors who need to have assisted living or memory care or even just individual senior living. So my goal, again, is just to ensure that the master plan addresses that, so when Leo or Father come back with a plan, they can say, this is a piece of the master plan. We're following everything that we saw in there. And then that path forward for us is very important. I might also mention that I chair the finance committee at Sacred Heart. So that committee also supports what Father and Leo were talking about as far as developing something on that property. But independent of that property, I just want to make sure the island itself addresses that. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Additional comments? Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Stevens. I'm at 9140 Bellevue. I'm also a member of Sacred Heart and the Finance Committee, and I wanted to express appreciation for all the work that you all have done here. I know it's a daunting task. I think that I wanted to say that echo what Ken talked about, that it would be nice to have a little bit more specificity about what kind of senior housing would be allowed in the plan. And also, and maybe whether it's explained in there or elsewhere, the differentiation between what we're doing as far as zoning and the master plan and the conjunction there, because it sounds like in some ways we're doing it a little backwards. Well, we've got the master plan, and if it fits here, then we'll go back and change the zoning, where maybe there's a middle ground on that. I also just wanted to express a little dismay because you have been very forthcoming in inviting public comments, but when I hear that we delivered nearly 100 letters to Ross and you didn't even see them, that's a little dismaying to the process. So that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Additional comments?
Mr. Chair, if I may. Mr. Chair,
Oh,
if I-
yes, Ross,
I
please.
did just want to reach out. I did send the 100 letters to you, Jay, and Eric, the executive committee, on March 18th, and then we also acknowledged those, I think in May, when we were looking at public comments then.
Was that part of when you forwarded on all of the various comments? There were a whole slew of them.
Yeah, these were 100 letters signed by Sacred Heart parishioners, and I scanned them and emailed them over to you all. And then I believe that we kind of acknowledged them during the public comments, because it's been open this whole time.
I guess I've just forgotten. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I
Jay,
did just want to
you
make sure
remember
that
that?
we did pass that on. Yep, thank you.
I just pulled it up on my phone. Yes.
Okay.
And I apologize, yeah.
I've just forgotten
I'll
them.
get it again, I remember.
We've had a lot of comments on this, so.
As Father Mark suggested, they are similar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were referenced.
A single letter with different signatures at the bottom. So I do remember it now. Yes, RJ.
Yep.
Yeah, well, then on that basis, I apologize. Perhaps I lost the forest for the trees.
So I don't have the power of absolution, somebody else here does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking.
All right. Yeah. No, good.
John, I'm sorry, did you go around the room one last time to see if there's any other
Oh,
public
yeah,
hearing?
I wasn't done quite yet. Go ahead, Kurt.
No. I'm back to you.
Oh, okay. Anybody else who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Margaret Shelton, Bellevue Road. I just want to thank all of you up here for putting in the time and the effort into this plan. I don't know that everybody fully realizes how much complexity there is, because as I'm sitting here listening and as I've seen the comments on Facebook, I guess we could all go through the master plan and go, well, I'd like this, and oh, you forgot this, but this is something that I would prefer. And as everybody's speaking, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm on the police commission. How am I going to get more officers? Or I know the other public safety people. How am I going to get more firemen? And when you're talking about all of these additions or preferences, they all come at a cost, and there's always going to be things that in order to have this, you have to have that. Or, we talk about tax base. We need to grow a tax base. I know that Ross is working hard on that. So all of these things come with a what about this or what about that. And I just, that's a very crude way for me to explain it, but I think sometimes when you're not exposed, I would have never thought this way, previously to being on the board. I would not have thought, what about those firemen? Or what about those police officers? Or what about DPS? What about, how is the, sewer system affected? So all of these things I think are important. And while I very much appreciate everybody's interest in, the master plan, I think that's a good thing. I know there was comments about, I didn't get to see the master plan. Oh, you only just put it out a week ago and it's 140 plus pages, and now it's going to go straight to the board. And, you know, I was whispering with Derek, is this something that perhaps we could have it as a discussion item at the next board meeting and then just push it one more board meeting before we, you know, put it up for an action item as approval or not approval, just to allow people to, you know, kind of digest it better. That might be an option that might make people feel a little better about it. We're not changing the master plan per se, but, you know, they can read through it, they can ask questions, do what they need to do, and I'm sure Ross is, you know, more than capable of answering them. So, you know, just my thoughts.
Thank you. You know, you're right. It's a balance in the things that you're doing. It's a balance of things that we're doing as well. As far as, you know, the Planning Commission doesn't have anything to say about how the Township Board controls their agenda, but Bill here does. So, you know, I think he's taken your words. Bill?
Yeah, and
At each other.
we can all talk about it, but yeah, it's just something to consider. I know I've seen a lot of back and forth online, and a lot of misinformation goes out on social media. I completely align with you. You know, it's just something to try to alleviate where possible. And again, I appreciate all the work that all of you have put in here.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, additional comments?
John, if there's not, do you need a motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, I do.
So moved.
Motion to close the public hearing from Kovalak. Support?
Support.
Support from Brian. Call a question. All in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is closed. I'll bring it back to the table now. We have, as I said, the resolution, which was in your package, which was the template that Ross modified from the Smith Group, which documents how we should be, what our motion should be toward the approval of that particular document. And I suppose it also needs to be a roll call vote. Is that correct?
It doesn't have,
Does not have to be? Okay. Then we're back to the table for discussion and/or motion.
John, I'll bring the motion just through you and I guess through Brian. Rather than reading the entire 2 pages of text, can we bring a motion just to approve the resolution as presented by our township staff? Brian, is that all right?
Yes, that's,
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. If you wanted to elaborate, I might just add, adopt the resolution to adopt the master plan, if you want to just be a little more precise. But adopting the resolution essentially is the commission's adoption of the plan, so.
All right, so I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution which approves, motion to approve the resolution of adoption. Ross, did you write this?
Yeah, I did.
Motion to
With
approve
Brian
the
minding
resolution
you,
of
so.
adoption of the master plan. So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution of adoption of the master plan update and recommend adoption to the Grosse Township Board of Trustees.
wow, okay. We have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
We have support from Brian. Is there additional?
Bill.
Bill? I'm sorry, I
Hiding
couldn't
behind
see
him.
down there. Is there additional discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Master plan recommendation to the Township Board is approved. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay.
See, Ross, it only took 2.5 years. You're fine, right? Yeah.
Ross was planning on retiring with this job. Okay. Anybody interested in a short break? Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back. We will now reconvene and move to the next item on the agenda, which is a public hearing regarding the C1 Convenience Commercial District Ordinance changes. A little background, the C1 district is unique. It is only located on one lot, the northeast corner of Grosse Road and Meridian. This lot has one business, that's the Airport Inn. So if you want to think about spot zoning, this is it. Okay. Recently, the township was approached by a developer and an architect on behalf of the owner with a plan to upgrade the building exterior, put in a small expansion, and then provide outdoor seating facing Grosse Road. In response, a concept review meeting was held with the applicant and the architect, and we discussed the issues. What we concluded very quickly is that C1 ordinance standards do not even fit what's there right now. It's out of compliance for setbacks and almost impossible to do anything with the way the ordinances are currently written. So to evaluate the proposed project, we need to even evaluate it, much less to even consider it. We have to make changes to the C1 ordinance standards. Brian, who participated in that meeting, put together a package of potential changes to C1, which he highlighted for us tonight, and we'll go through those. As far as the process for the ordinance change, we're talking about Article 6, which is the C1 Convenience Commercial District, and Article 25, which is the zoning ordinance amendment process. That process is multi-step. First, a public hearing, followed by a planning commission recommendation to the township board, and then finally the township board needs to approve it. Tonight, we're going to hold the public hearing, and I expect that the planning commission will vote regarding a recommendation this evening. Just a note, approving this ordinance change does not imply approval of the project. Okay, the changes allow the project to be considered by the planning commission. So on that note, Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the intro and the background for the residents as well as the commissioners. This is a little bit of an unusual situation in that we have a district that's applied to only a single property, and even despite that, the standards that are in place for that district don't really fit the site. I won't say at all, but they don't fit the site well. There are several non-conforming aspects, and so during our pre-app meeting, one of the options was, and anytime we're dealing with non-conformities, we start dealing with the potential of needing to go to Zoning Board of Appeals and seek variances. And this was one of those situations where I think we felt that this was a more proper, appropriate planning and zoning tool to address the ordinance deficiencies for the site, as opposed to making the property owner and applicant go through ZBA and seek multiple variances when it's pretty clear that the standards really weren't written well for the site. Not unlike many years ago, those of you who were here when we sort of rethought Lower Hickory Island, and we created some new standards that were more appropriate to how that neighborhood had developed. Now this is a little different because this is only a single property as opposed to a whole neighborhood, but the apples to apples, I think, is still pretty apt there, because we have a district that really just didn't apply well to the property that it's set at. So that being said, I'll jump into this, and obviously stop me at any point, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, if you have questions. So did not offer any changes to 6.1, the intent of the district, did not offer any changes to 6.2A, the principal permitted uses of the district. Where my proposed changes do start is 6.2B. So under accessory, as Chairman Schweikert mentioned, one of the items that the new owners are looking to add is some outdoor seating space adjacent to the bar restaurant. So that is not currently allowed in this district. So what I did was added it as an accessory component to this section with the phrasing basically allowing the outdoor seating area for a restaurant I did include the second part of this statement, which is related to the noise levels. That is language that's currently in the Macomb Street District chapter. So Article 7, with respect to restaurants with outdoor seatings, has that exact language, provided that noise levels do not disturb adjacent uses. So I thought, A, it's consistent with where we have this elsewhere in the ordinance, and B, this property does abut a single-family home. So I felt that that was appropriate to keep that in, so that any future evaluation of a plan at the commission level will take that into mind and make sure that we're doing everything we can, or make sure that we're requiring the petitioners do everything they can to protect that residence. So I did keep that in, and I also incorporated, because it would have been left kind of unclear. And when we did have a couple of outdoor seating or quasi-outdoor seating establishments on Macomb Street the last handful of years, we did restrict them to setbacks for the district. So I also then included simply that the outdoor seating area will have to respect the setbacks for the district here. So I felt like that was pretty straightforward, but certainly any questions you may have, I'm happy to take on that section. Last point on this one, I also I deleted this phrasing here, if you can see my cursor, in B2. So the reference in the current ordinance is the following accessory uses shall be permitted, and then there's a reference to provisions of Section 1911. So Section 1911 does have accessory structure and building regulations, but when you look at what's in this ordinance currently, it has absolutely nothing to do with parking or signs. So I don't know why that reference was incorporated, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I felt like we're going to open this up. Let's clean it up while we're at it. So I'm just proposing to delete that language. Yes, sir.
Looking at this and just asking, a table and chair sitting there on the parking lot with cars going by seems to me to be at risk of some car not looking and causing harm to them. Is there going to be some specifications of what will create a safe environment for this outdoor dining experience right there by the parking lot?
I believe, to me, that will be dictated during site plan review. So they will be required, anytime you have a alcohol service in an outdoor environment, it has to have a barricade around that space. So it'll have to, at least at a minimum, it'll be fenced.
That's what I wanted.
But as part of, I don't want to get into too fine details in the ordinance, but I do think that that's something, obviously, that the petitioner and the new owners will have to consider, and that'll be something that'll be evaluated during site plan review.
Thank you.
Of course. So that's all I had on the use part of it. 6.3 did not touch paragraphs A, B, or C. I did incorporate one sentence into D. So right now the ordinance prohibits outdoor storage in this district. So I took that a step further and incorporated what would be a potential provision that would require the furniture of an outdoor seating area to come in at the end of business each night. I've already received a little bit of pushback from a couple of folks on that as to whether or not that's a reasonable regulation to apply, and I'll leave that up to the commission. If you don't think that's necessary, or you'd like to modify that section, I'd be happy to do so. This is something I've seen. I'll just put it this way. I have some communities that would require this. I have other communities that would not require this. So if you think it's too stringent, as I've sort of been told, then I certainly wouldn't disagree with you. But again, I'm trying to put together what I think are some reasonable protections, and that I thought was something I would at least put in here. And if you don't want it, we'll take it out. So
Fair enough.
happy to do so.
How do we currently have that written for the Macomb Street District? Because it's not a requirement.
It is not. You do not. So right now, you wouldn't have to, they don't have to bring in tables, chairs, umbrellas, whatever it is they have. If they want to, they can. Certainly,
Right.
like, there's things
But it's
that
not
are
required.
potentially going to get damaged or aren't sort of held down firmly, if there's a big windstorm coming, whatever the
Right.
case might be.
Yep.
They can, but they would not be required to.
And John, just through through you as chair, I've seen ordinances where it just says at the end of the season, they're stored indoors, right? So during the season, they keep them out, and then during like the winter season, then you have to store them inside somewhere. So
That would seem a reasonable compromise.
yeah, there'll be a compromise, I'm sure, in some capacity.
Yeah, because
About that.
Speaking for myself. Go ahead.
I was thinking about that fenced-off area over there at the airport inn and saying, what are they going to do when they plow snow? And I'm just learning from this. I hadn't thought of it before, but it shook me up a bit. You got to think your way through a number of different issues.
Oh, sorry, Brian, you can keep on going. I just
Yes, okay.
gave my thoughts. So
No,
keep
please,
going.
please do. I want this to be collaborative. We're kind of working through this.
Can we agree to make that a seasonal?
I think that makes sense, but I just had one question. Like furniture comes in different contexts, so some of it is much lighter, which could be blown around in the wind, or like it might be stacked up, which might not look as attractive. And again, those could be reasons for wanting to bring something inside periodically, either like by the over the night or like through a season. But what if you have some more durable furniture where it's very heavy, like I believe back by Hungry Howie's in that shopping center that they have, some picnic tables and things that are like picked in like concrete. Obviously, you're not going to pick that up and move it out. So I think like maybe there could be some exceptions or context based on like what type of furniture and seeing the practicality of moving it and just making sure that it's attractive, like even when it's like potentially not being used.
Points.
And
Okay.
when we go through the site plan, we can make that a requirement, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for purposes of the zoning, I think maybe just a statement that outside storage will be, maintained in a reasonably attractive manner. Yeah, you're better at the wording of this than I am, but and then I think Angela asked a good question about the Macomb Street and maybe mimic what we've done there with respect to storage. And you and I had talked at the break about bringing garbage in and things like that. So I don't know if we have something like that in the Macomb Street district, but it seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything specific, not that comes to mind anyway. But again, it's the kind of thing where, at a minimum, we're opening the ordinance up, so I'd like to put something in there now. Worst case, it certainly would be something that would be part of site plan review and would either be a condition or a requirement. But yeah, I think within this, I can incorporate some verbiage about maintaining the space in a whatever. Clean, maybe not the right word right now, but certainly free of debris, trash, etc. Making sure that it's cleaned up at the end of each day. And then if you want, we can still keep in the idea of off-season storage.
No storage.
Yeah. I mean, as Brian suggested.
Yeah, I think, and my thought comes to mind, I think winter isn't necessarily a reason that people aren't going to want to go to the API and potentially sit outside. So it might behoove us to just leave that open and just state, hey, outdoor furniture, should be kept clean and tidy. But I think like thinking about encouraging use of that space isn't a terrible thing even in February, right? So I don't know if I like the idea of saying specifically that there's a reason for seasonality. And I'm not really in favor of keeping in the storing the furniture indoors. If you've ever been in API, their entire addition would be for storing their outdoor furniture because there's no space, right? So
understood. I
right.
think the intent, if it were to be a seasonal thing, would be they'd have to take it off-site.
And seasonal would be based upon they might not be serving during December, January, and February.
That's
so
true.
If they're not, then they don't need to have it outside.
I think that's perfect. Maybe even to include it something along that line. Yeah.
The way I looked at it as far as a season, it's like, well, again, similarly, it's like, hey, are they open? Are they like using the outdoor space?
Yeah.
If they're using the outdoor space during the winter, it's still part of their season.
Yeah.
But like if they're not, then it's closed.
Yep.
Seems to me you can look at this thing 6 ways from Sunday and come up with questions.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell you have this heavy furniture that can't move. But what if it became an attractive nuisance and the housing nearby here, these people who bring their own bottle of beer and sit in that chair and howl at the moon at 2 a.m. You see, I mean, I'm not trying to argue one way or the other. You probably learn from experience with having tried something. You might know more about that because you've already been involved.
I believe that would be a crime. So I think Pete, I'm not speaking from any, personal knowledge, but.
Sure about that?
No comment. Can I plead the fifth?
You can.
Thank
He
you.
wants the
Okay.
What are you doing next
I think
Saturday,
you've- I think
Brian?
you've got the gist of it, Brian, so.
I can certainly mess around with that. And
Let's move on.
Yeah. So parking is another one. So the intent of this statement, the first one I changed, was related to keeping it out of front yards, which I'm normally all in favor of, and that's something we've tried to promote on Macomb Street, and I think we will with once the new master plan's adopted, we can open up Macomb Street, and we're going to start looking at things like that. However, again, as a one-site zone district, it's a corner lot, and restricting to side or rear is kind of a tough fit. They've got front yard parking in both front yards already, so I took out that restriction and simply put in a setback requirement that would refer back to the conventional parking standards. So they'd still have to meet regular parking lot setback standards, but not being so stringent as to say you could only have it in one front yard, or even that you had to meet the district setback, which currently is 40 feet, which pushes the whole thing in more than they're already at right now. So I felt like that was sort of a reasonable play on trying to make the site work better for some future potential expansion. Continuing the parking theme, I did add a parking requirement for the outdoor seating space. I think their intent is to provide some additional parking anyway, but this is something that for a conventional, like a Macomb Street restaurant, the two-ish more recent outdoor spaces we have are sort of quasi-outdoor. They're still enclosed during off-season and or covered. So they were counted, their parking requirements were counted as part of the floor area, which is pretty standard. The intent here is this is not going to be a covered or partially enclosed space. This is going to be a patio. So I did feel that incorporating some amount of additional parking was probably warranted, just to make sure that ultimately they have enough to support business on inside, business on outside during those handful of summer weekends when, they're going to be pretty busy. So I thought that was a pretty reasonable approach. Paragraph G is related to stormwater, and as you all know, I'm not an engineer. Stormwater is not my expertise, but we have had some discussion, and I tried to clean this up to make it a little more flexible. Right now, it basically just says storm sewer or detention pond on site. I don't think this property is really going to warrant a detention pond. That's going to be very costly and very difficult for them to even figure out. So I tried to soften this up and just talk about, I refer to it as an alternative method and incorporated review and recommendation by the engineer. So Planning Commission will have some discretion as it relates to stormwater and drainage, but it's going to be based on what your engineer tells you they can and can't do. And the engineer is going to be applying the Wayne County standard. So whatever the engineer says, it will match what the county says, and then you all can allow that if you believe that it's in the best interests of the site. So just trying to, again, make that just a little more flexible than it currently reads.
Are there water problems at this site right now?
I don't actually think so, but it's also kind of I don't even, is the whole parking lot paved right now?
No.
It seems like there's some gravel out there and there's some other things. So stormwater will have to be addressed one way or another as part of site plan review, just because they will be expanding both parking potentially and the building. But like I said, I don't know that there are issues now, but that doesn't mean that there might not be in the future. But we can mitigate those, and that's why you have a good engineering firm. And then the last change, again, this is related to trying to bring the site into compliance and providing a little more flexibility. So section 6.4, and this is where my formatting went wonky, so I apologize. This is a pretty tacky approach I had to take, but it's the one that worked. So my draft would reduce the current front yard setback from 40 feet to 20 feet, and it would reduce the current side yard setback from 25 feet to 5 feet. That would bring the building into compliance with current standards. It would no longer be a non-conforming building, and would give them a little bit of flexibility to potentially expand, either for what they're already contemplating or even potentially more in the future. I didn't want to hamstring them in the event 5 years from now, they're booming and they want to add on a little bit more. So I figured that was, again, I thought it was reasonable and appropriate given the circumstances that we're dealing with of a strange district on a single site. So that's the extent of it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, before you leave, questions for Brian?
Brian, one question I have is 6.2A1, and this is more of just more direction. It talks about what can be done on site. It talks about groceries, meats, dairy products, and also the fact that you sell drugs. I think nowadays what we put is prescription drugs, but I don't know if you want to change that or not. But that is, in this day and age, the ordinances that I review now, we always kind of denote what type of drugs versus just general drugs. So
Can certainly do that if commission desires. You do still have the prohibition on the marijuana establishments
Understood.
clear in other ordinance, but
And to me, it's not that important, but just I looked at an ordinance probably 3
Sure.
weeks ago when that came out. So, and then there was a big discussion about it. So,
the whole thing is open for commission consideration. So if you think that helps clarify and or prevents potential
it.
problems,
yeah, I don't.
Put it in.
super easy to add.
That makes sense.
Anything else, Kurt?
No.
Angela? No. Jay?
No, sir.
Brian?
My only concern was something that we're joking around with, about spot zoning, and I know that's, up for, it's up to determine interpretation, but I know that spot zoning is kind of frowned upon, and so like, is there any intent where this could be applied to a different property in the future, so that way it definitely is not considered spot zoning, and if not, is the right effort as far as doing this as a C1 and continuing with this, or would you better like if there was something else that it could fall into, and like I know earlier was mentioned PUD or something, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're protected against a spot zoning claim.
So we're not changing zoning, so there is no spot zoning claim.
Okay.
The site's already zoned C1. It has been for 20 plus years, probably way more.
More than that.
More than that.
And that C1
I can
is,
only go back to my tenure here. So
Brian, that C1 is specific to that particular corner.
that's correct. That's the only property in the township zone C1.
The thought I have is that when you're dealing with that place, it's small. You have, I mean, if you put some the space outside out for dining on the tables, you lose a couple parking spaces. You have more people and less parking space, so you have a little more congestion. It's like putting your finger in a balloon. But the thing is that circumstance isn't going to be necessarily common to any other site. If we just have this zoned as its unique specs of circumstance, I think there's a safety in that. And we apparently have been doing it already, so there's nothing illegal about it.
Certainly nothing illegal about it. No, and the overall project intent is they are going to expand parking as part of this. And in all honesty, I think these changes to this ordinance would probably require them to expand the parking if they weren't proposing it by incorporation of some added parking requirements. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but I recognize that we're not changing the zoning here, but we are changing the regulations within the zoning, and since it only applies to one property owner, I just want to make sure that as far as optics are concerned and everything, that again it doesn't look like we're picking on one type of person that owns this property, and that we're not being arbitrary and capricious, and that we're protecting the township with whatever we're doing as far as this legislation, no matter the intent.
Understood, and I think that was my intent when I drafted it. That's what even by putting in no outdoor storage and moving things indoors at night, I'm not trying to be overly generous to this new owner at all. My goal is to make sure that there are regulations in place that protect the township from potential adverse impacts, and as I mentioned earlier, of course, really take into consideration, given the location of this site, whatever site, pending what happens with this and the board, whatever site plan comes before you, I'm going to stress protection of that adjacent residence to the east of this property.
Maybe if I can rephrase my question over here. So right now, it seems again, we are working with the property owner, as we always want to do is, to be able to try and figure out a way for property owners to be able to use their property, to the fullest extent. And, we're going through and we're making potential changes to the zoning ordinance, which is good. We're being reactionary. We're being proactive over here working with them. But let's just say, and I'm making no claims on this whatsoever, but just hypothetically, If discussions break down and there's some issue that the property owner wanted something, we didn't want to rezone it that way. Could they say hey, this only applies to my property over here. And they bring up the claim of spot zoning from that spot, that standpoint, and take us to court. That's what I'm trying to make sure that we're avoiding from the situation. So it's if it had a different designation rather than C1, if there's no intent to ever use C1 in another part of our community, is it considered spot zoning, and are we at a disadvantage over here by keeping it as C1?
I mean, I guess I'm going to answer your question. What would you zone it to then if not C1? It's a commercial property. You have 2 commercial districts in this entire community. One is explicit to Macomb Street, and one is C1 convenience commercial. There is applying Macomb Street to this site makes no sense to me at all. And I don't believe your plan calls for any other C1 properties. So the first thing you would look at if you were going to rezone something to C1, you'd look at your plan. I don't believe the plan has any call for additional commercial properties outside of Macomb Street.
I'd like to comment to that. It seems that what we do is to try to make a decision on the basis of convenience, comfort, safety for the community, the business itself, and those who are closely in proximity of it. And I think there's always an opportunity somewhere in there that we would require something for some reason like that would add expense that the person who owned the business would object to because he didn't feel the expense was necessary. Now, at that point, lawsuits aren't that hard to get. Your cases against you are limited by the imagination of the people who are out there, and somehow you accept that. But I think that's part of life, at least in my experience when I was insuring businesses. I mean, some guy didn't want the fire extinguishers on the ceiling, but he had to have them. It was statute. He either accepted it or built elsewhere, and we're cooperating with this, trying to help the guy to do better.
I guess, John, if I can just add something to that, or Brian, if you're not done, keep on going. Sorry.
Again, I'm not trying to be difficult over here. I'm just trying to make sure that this is the best case as far as doing C1, just because I know that spot zoning is not a good thing. And so if there was another alternative out there, have we considered that? Because again, you just don't want to look at it if we're creating rules, but they're not going to apply to anybody else except for this property owner. And again, if there's intent, let's say hey, the pilot house or some other property could be C1 in the future. Well, then that's more protection. We're gonna apply it to other property owners. But I feel if we're just going through and making changes to one single property, I feel that there could be at least optics where I feel this could be spot zoning. It could be something that could have been done differently. And so I just want to make sure. And again, if I'm wrong, that's great. I just want to make sure we're checking everything out in this regard.
I completely understand. That's why we go through this process. I have no fear whatsoever related to a spot zoning claim.
Okay.
It's not a spot zoning. It's already zoned that. We're not rezoning anything. So if the petitioner, like I said, the alternative would be Macomb Street District, which would be inconsistent with your plan. So I would never support that, and I wouldn't encourage you to do that. Alternatively, there's no other allowance for a restaurant or commercial use other than A1 airport district, which you'd have to rezone it to, but I don't think that's a fit either. So
Brian,
it's been zone C1 for many, many years,
Okay.
and adjusting the text makes a lot more sense than creating another district or creating a PUD just to address this one tiny little property. Quite frankly, this one little site, if you ever were to adopt PUD regulations, probably wouldn't qualify for a PUD.
Okay.
So
That's good to know.
I think this is, in my estimation, this is the proper approach to sort of mitigate the oddities of this particular situation.
So Brian, I think it might be helpful to us as commissioners. We all know the term spot zoning, and we all know that, or at least have heard spot zoning is bad, right? But you've said a couple of times this is not spot zoning. Can you describe what spot zoning is and why this is not spot zoning?
Spot zoning would be related to a rezoning petition. So if this site were zoned residential and it's isolated in terms of it's surrounded by residential and your plan doesn't call it to be commercial, then rezoning it to C1 would theoretically be a spot zone. In this case, we're not changing the zoning.
And the idea that spot zoning is not allowed is for the protection of the property owner who's being rezoned or for the neighboring uses, or both?
Typically, in my experience, I would say it's more for the protection of the community and the surrounding properties.
And the precedent that it sets.
Yeah. And I would also add too, I know it's a popular, I haven't used the phrase spot zoning in 15 or 20 years. It's just not something that's that commonly used anymore. Doesn't mean there are communities that are at risk of doing it or jeopardizing it, but I don't see that as an issue. And in all honesty, I can check your current plan when I go sit down. But I think the current plan, I don't know about your draft that you just moved forward. I think your current plan does show this as commercial as well. In which case, it's not just because it's isolated in one parcel. If it's consistent with your plan, then it's not a spot zone. Spot zone is a two-pronged test. So if it's consistent with your plan, that term wouldn't apply anyway.
And again, through the chair, your example of rezoning from residential to commercial for the specific applicant.
Right.
That's spot zoning. What we're doing today is just updating C1 because it's outdated.
Correct.
Right? Then what happens is they have to come in front of us and go through a full site plan review. And at that time, we can determine whether or not it's an appropriate proposal or not.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Yep.
I think we
Good
just need to
point.
move forward with this, get this language to approve it, and then let them come back with, like you said, John, if they come back with a tight plan, then we'll review it in earnest.
I like that.
So I want to thank everyone for their comments and helping me understand this. And, I feel comfortable with it and I have no other concerns.
Thanks, Brian. Jay, any more concerns?
No, not for me.
Angela?
No.
Kurt?
None.
Okay, then let's open the public hearing at this point for comments about the changes to the C1 zoning district. Are there any people here who would like to speak to that topic? Don't see any hands.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing by Kurt,
Second.
support by Brian. Call the question. All in favor of closing the public hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is closed. So now we'll bring it back to the table regarding a motion regarding the ordinance changes proposed by Brian.
Make a motion to recommend Township Board approval of zoning text amendments to C1 Convenience Commercial District of the Grosse Code of Ordinances.
Support.
I have a motion and support from Brian again. Discussion, call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. The ordinance change recommendation to the Township Board is approved. Brian, would you make sure there's a finding of facts to help Bill when he presents?
Yeah, Ross and I will work together. We'll make sure that Trustee Heil has what he needs to move this forward. And I'm not sure what our next meeting opportunity is, but we'll get that figured out too.
Okay, let's go to the last item on the agenda, which is a discussion topic. Okay, it's updating several select zoning ordinances, specifically Article 7 in the Muscombe Street District, Article 19, General Provisions, Article 20, Permits, Performance, Guarantees, and Enforcement, and Article 24, Administrative Organization. This is initiated through Ross to update these ordinances specifically related to performance bonds and guarantees for applicants to make sure it's basically an update is what it is. And there are pieces of this all through the four ordinances that I just described. Again, the process for this is Article 25. When we get that far, we'll hold a public hearing, then we'll make a recommendation, and then finally make we'll take a vote, and then we'll send it to the board for their final approval. Tonight, we're only at the discussion phase. Ross, at a very high level, can you run through this for us? We're not gonna dwell on it because
Right.
just in concept, why are we doing this? And at a high level, what are we doing?
Yep. So, you know, our existing performance bond guarantees are, I think it's at a flat rate of 1,000 for residential, and the other one is 2,000. So, you know, we want to increase those performance bonds, and this basically gives us the approval through the township board to increase those bonds through our fee schedule. Right now, you know, we're anticipating it's based on construction value. So as the construction value increases, so does the performance bond requirements. So that basically ensures that, you know, if you're doing $1 million project, you know, we want to make sure that you're going to do it right and that you know, you get everything inspected. You know, as we're going through a lot of our permits and things from 30 years ago to now, there's a lot of projects on the island that never got the final inspections, never got the proper permits because the performance guarantee was so low that they thought, hey, you know, here's my $1,000 and we'll see you later. So this basically gives us the requirements to, you know, we didn't have, there was no limit to how many permit extensions we could grant to residents or, you know, developers, and now this requires you only get one extension, and then if you're not done with your project, then you have to complete a new application. So there's a lot of teeth in this to allow us to make sure that development happens correctly according to our ordinances and building codes. So
This is a good thing.
yes, it's a fantastic thing.
Okay, comments on that. Kurt? Angela?
No, just a question in terms of, I guess, will this be seen from the developer community as another step in the process or as adding additional layers or complexity that they would not have to work around in other communities?
Nope. In fact, our attorney said, you know, we should have a 150% performance bond, which is actually very, very high, and only some communities do that. And, you know, we're saying, well, okay, let's start small and then work our way there. I mean, so performance bonds are typical practice across any community. It's to make sure that you do the work correctly. So we're just making sure that we're up to, you know, 2025 standards and not, you know, I can't remember the last time this was amended, but I'm guessing at least before 2002. So it's a typical process. It's just making sure that we have the updated figures to make sure things get done correctly.
How about before 1990?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, comments?
No, I think this is good.
Brian?
Appreciate Ross being proactive on this. Great job.
Yep. Bill?
Just a question. Let's say we're remodeling a kitchen. I just need some kind of a project to speak to, and let's say that the cost is $10,000. Do we have a fixed rate or just only a low number that whether it was $10,000 or $15,000 that we'd give them a bond for $1,500 or something? It was something ridiculously low.
Yeah, so it's based off of cost of construction. So, you know, if it's a $10,000 project, maybe the bond is $500. I'm not sure. It's on our fee schedule right now, but
Are there guidelines available to you for what is more reasonable in the industry?
yeah. So we did an analysis of neighboring communities and what they have, and going on based off of cost of construction is
Yes.
typically what you see, and we just have never done that. So it's looking at its best practices.
You bet.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Okay, so let's see. Anybody in the audience want to talk to this topic? Nope. Okay. Then the next thing will happen on this, Ross, is at the next meeting, we schedule a public hearing, get this formally up to the board. Okay, any other comments on that? If not, we'll move on to the chair's report. And I guess the only question I have there is, Brian, is there anything in the hopper? Did I forget something?
Yeah, there's another one, 285-17, waterfront provisions, clear vision triangles.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
All good. I'll keep this kind of light, but essentially the court ruled against the township on its own interpretations of the clear vision triangle. It's been, to my understanding, the township's practice, and at least our practice for the past 3 years that I've been here is that nothing either permanently or temporarily goes in that clear vision triangle, right? It's to be maintained unobstructed views of the waterfront. Unfortunately, a judge ruled against our interpretation. So I think that, having a more in-depth discussion with the executive, with the officers about this, to bring an amendment to the commission, maybe at not the next meeting or a meeting in the future, would be beneficial, because I think it takes away a long-standing practice, at least to my understanding of the township's enforcement of this ordinance. So
Then we need to get the 3 officers together with Brian and you. So will you guys arrange something for us?
Yep.
And then we'll work the issue and see what we can then bring back to the full commission.
John, just through the chair, it would be good to see that case, and I want to see the opinion.
Yep. I
How
can provide that to the commission.
Yeah, they're all public documents, so.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we asked, at least I asked the question and Ross got an answer. Is it better to have the decision appealed, or is it better simply to change the ordinance? And what you came back with was it was cheaper or the attorney came back with was saying, don't swim upstream, change the ordinance.
Yeah. Although they were pretty confident in their appeal, but they were saying it's just let's just change the ordinance. So.
And then, John, through again, I don't know if it's Oakland County, it's probably Wayne County, I'd suspect, but there's a lot of judges in Wayne County, and there's good judges in Wayne County, and there's not good judges in Wayne County. So the fact that a judge made an opinion as to something that's been longstanding in this community, we want to take that and put that in context, because you could get another judge the very next day that would uphold our ordinance, right? So your executive side, you and Eric and Jay, it'll be good to see what the recommendations are. The mere fact, it's not Supreme Court, right? So the mere fact that a Wayne County Circuit judge has a ruling, there's precedent there, but it's not binding on every matter that comes in front of a Wayne Circuit judge. Another judge can make a different decision. So they're appealing it, it sounds like.
Okay, very good. With that in mind, Brian, I'll ask the question again. Is there anything in the hopper?
Nothing that has come forward in terms of applications. We've had a number of meetings the last month or two, but nothing has come forward just yet. So
Okay. All right, so that means that we have no driver for the next meeting. So we'll play it by ear, see what comes of it, see who applies for what, and then we'll take it from there. We'll let everybody know, and we can decide on a meeting date then. Last item is public comment. Anything not on the agenda? Further comments? Sure, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Ed Kostroff.
Hi, Ed.
I'm the president of West Shore Construction. We are the people that are proposing to do the changes to the airport inn under the C1 zoning. We have had a couple of meetings with members of the Planning Commission and Brian and Ross, and thank you for considering the approval of changing the conditions that involve C1. If you're interested, I have drawings, and I'd be more than happy to show them to you, and you'll see the change in that development, and it'll be a positive change, and it will allow handicapped access to the building, amongst other things, and it'll be on one grade. Some of the items you gentlemen spoke about earlier, safety, it's all been considered. Our architect is a member of your commission who just happens to be on vacation, Dan Boggs, so everything is going according to Hoyle. So thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Yes, sir, please come on up.
My name's Kevin Flavin, Park Lane. I just wanted to say thank you to the whole board for everything you have done to move us to this place with the master plan. I've talked with many of you, and I thank you again for your time and energy to do all of this. 2.5 years seems like a long time, but after watching the process, my thought is, I see why it takes that long. I appreciate Ross and Mr. Brian. Thank you for everything you have done, and to the public that has, over this period, has given their input and helped the process along. It is a complex, large process, complex, I think, with more gray area than black and white, and everybody, I appreciate all the work that has been done.
Well, thank you. And as you know, sitting here on the commission, we can say this is a very good master plan, and it has earned your support and the support of your colleagues on that board.
I appreciate, we have talked, you have educated me. Everybody here is, the education I've learned from this has been, this is kind of it is a monumental undertaking and task that does guide the community for a number of years, and I agree with you. It is very, very well done. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, no more public comment? Motion to adjourn from Kurt. Support.
Second.
Second for Brian. Call a question.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.